Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Leigh Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipschutz, a senior producer at Leigh and co-host of the program of Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal and a longtime entertainment reporter who's getting busy again. You're busy, finally.
They're back.
They're back.
Can you believe that? We're getting actually some actors. The strike is over, and the actors are willing to talk. And this is like, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
There's another thing you did add in my bio. Can I add something in?
Sure, go for it.
He used to live in Fargo.
Oh, did you?
So there you go. And this week, it's all about Fargo. Because I tell you, it's going to be the biggest limited series that you will see between now and the end of the year. It really has a lot going for it. And it's one of those ones that I think they kept pushing back because it was supposed to start in September.
Right.
Because they wanted to get that kind of, if you will, window of opportunity where the people could talk. It is, of the 5 Fargos, at least my second favorite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at least. Because it goes back to the old school things. You'll see moments from the Fargo film by the Coen brothers will remind you of things. And it brings us a different Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm, I told you it was going to be a double header this year with the morning show and Fargo. And now you're getting the second half of that. What's the baseball term for that? The second half of the
double header.
The double header. In this one, he plays a kind of a constitutional sheriff who's running for re-election, and he is very good at controlling the community. He's from North Dakota. But he does not have the accent that the others might, the kind that you, don't you know, we're going to go. He's not, he has moments with that, but he is this kind of controlling force in the community who just assumes that he's going to be reelected. But then some things start happening that kind of make people question his ability to govern. So he's kind of the lawmaker in the whole thing. But the average person, the one that we probably tie into most, is a housewife named Dot. She's played by Juno Temple. And she happens to be at a PTA meeting where just all hell breaks loose and she gets arrested. She's thrown into jail. And this really isn't her way, if you will. She's not that kind of a person. But things start spreading around that there's a little more there to her story than we know. And she has to try and figure out how she's going to get out of a lot of jams. And yes, she's on the hunted list of Jon Hamm's character. Her mother-in-law is played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. Wow. And she is the richest woman in the area. She makes $2 billion a year. And she does it through debt collection. So she's a no-nonsense kind of in-law. And Juno's husband is a real meek guy. He's very much like the role that William H. Macy played in the original Fargo film. And he also runs a car dealership. So there you go. But you'll see how it all starts spinning out. And it all happens around Halloween, 2019.
Okay.
There are people who come into the picture that are interesting, and they wear costumes from The Nightmare Before Christmas. So there are a lot of little things to look for. But I loved it. So
you mentioned Jon Hamm, and he didn't necessarily have like a really strong Midwest accent, but the question I have now for you is Juno Temple, who's English,
incredible at it.
And I loved her. She was in, for those that don't remember, she was in Ted Lasso as Keeley, and she had such a thick, almost like, can we get subtitles up on the screen? What is she saying?
Yeah, we need subtitles for her, but she's good with this, really good with, no, we're gonna be going there, don't you know? Yeah, she's very, very good at this, and a surprising character, because you think she's this meek woman, and then things start changing, and you realize what she's really like.
Okay. Now, Fargo as a movie, I love Fargo, and I love pretty much every Coen Brothers movie there's ever been made. I mean, they suck me in, and it's the twists in the films, and obviously, something bad usually happens to one of their characters, or at least one of their characters, because that's just kind of what you come to expect. And I always loved the concept of doing this as an anthology series where you're telling different stories from season to season and jumping timelines. And I think that's been fun. And I think it's been fun seeing how, even though it is an anthology and each season's a little bit different, they somehow tie into the full narrative of Fargo. You could pretty much link all the stories together. But the two things that really stand out for me is that they've done a tremendous job season to season casting. I mean, if you go through each season and look at, who's been in it, that first season, when you had
Allison Tolman was the big breakout star.
That's right. Yeah, she was there. You had Billy Bob Thornton was in it. Colin Hanks was in it. Martin Freeman. I mean, that was just a tremendous cast. Season 2, when we had it was Patrick Wilson, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, Ted Danson. Like, Ted Danson was a fun character in that, and somebody that you didn't necessarily think of. He's Sam Malone. He's not,
right,
a Fargo-y kind of character. Ewan McGregor in season 3 playing twins, and he's another one. And Carrie Coon, who I absolutely love. She is just everything she's in, I love. The one disappointment to me wasn't the cast, but season 4. I mean, it was like, I saw that cast, I'm thinking like, wow, Chris Rock, wow, Jason Schwartzman, right? Ben Winshaw. I'm like, this is going to be the greatest Fargo ever. And I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I didn't.
It was terrible.
It went too far back, I think. I think what you need is that contemporary spin that gives you a little something to hold on to. Yeah, I love Ben Whishaw. I think he's really, really talented. And I thought he got lost in this.
Yeah. I actually forgot he was in it until I looked it up.
This year, you've got some surprises. Do you know, were you a big Stranger Things fan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Joe Keery is in this, and he played one of the kids. And now he plays the sheriff's son, Gator. And Gator is just hugely troubled. He doesn't, he acts first, and then he checks on things. He played Steve. Does that ring a bell? Steve?
Yeah. Stranger Things. Yep.
All right, you're good. Yeah, and so he's lots of fun. And then the husband of Juno's character, David Rysdale, very, very, very funny, very good. I mean, it's like he'll be a surprise. And I think that's one of the things that Fargo does, is it introduces people that we haven't seen before and gives them that shot where they can perhaps capitalize on it. Noah Hawley, who wrote and created the anthology series, knows what he's doing. He really knows the characters. He knows the sensibility of Fargo. He knows that whole world and is able to spill it out in ways that you are still surprised. And I think in this year, you'll see some of those little surprises. That Halloween night is incredible. Halloween night is coming. I think it's about the 3rd episode, and you'll get very excited about that because Dot and her husband, Wayne, know that something's afoot, and they make plans to make sure that they are not on the wrong side of the foot.
Okay.
I got a chance to talk to a number of people from the series. In addition to the actors, I was able to talk to the costume designer and the head makeup artist. And they were ones who have been with this for most of the Fargos. These are shot in Calgary, except for that one that we didn't like, which wasn't. That was shot in Chicago. And so they have a shorthand with the people and how they do all these kinds of things. And when I was talking with the makeup artist, she said that really you can't be too graphic or too scary, if that's the term, with some of the, you have to be toning it down a little bit so that there is a comic element to it.
Right.
You see some of those things, and you'll see what I mean when you see some. It's like a Warner Brothers cartoon where suddenly the Wile E. Coyote gets hit on the head, and then he has kind of that goofy look, or Home Alone, where you see the characters. Yeah, so that she has that sensibility that really brings it home. And then the costuming. Come on, the hardest thing for this is trying to find different police uniforms, because they aren't all the same throughout all the Fargo episodes. It changes all the time. So she has to constantly do research for this. Neither of them are from the Fargo area, but they're based in Calgary, and that gives them an opportunity to, it's very similar. They know what they're dealing with. And Jon Hamm, his character was one that I was particularly interested in because he wears this coat. The coat is iconic. And I asked her about that, Carol, and she said, well, you can look out the door anywhere in Calgary and you'll see somebody who's just like that character. But there's a quirk factor that's involved with it that makes him just a little different.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I did obviously listen to the interviews because you send them to me and I have to edit them into this program. So it was really interesting to hear what they had to say, and your point, not just that look for Jon Hamm that you picked up on and she got excited for, that you picked up on it, but also that piece of it with the uniforms, that you can't necessarily recycle things because they're time jumping. But so a uniform from 1980 is going to look completely different in 1940 and even to today. But then you look at the uniforms, and because they are going, it doesn't necessarily just take place in one place. You have multiple jurisdictions. And I just think of, like, having lived in a few different places, if you show me the look of a New Jersey State Trooper without telling me it's a New Jersey State Trooper, I know it's a Jersey State Trooper because they have a very distinct uniform, which has not changed very much in the last 30 years. And if I see it, I know it. And now living in Wisconsin, I can pick up on a uniform and see, oh yeah, you are from this jurisdiction. So that was a real fascinating point that she had to make as well.
And they also always have snow. Snow is a common denominator in these episodes. And as she says, they were able to, make some of the clothing that doesn't look as warm, insulated. They'll insulate just about everything because they never know when they have to run them outside. The other thing I was surprised at is that they don't see the whole scripts. They don't see all the scripts before they begin. And I thought that, come on, if you're going to be designing something, shouldn't you know how it might end?
Yeah, that's interesting. You kind of have to just go off notes and figure that out.
She says, we're like the actors, we get a clue. They'll drop a clue about something, but it isn't necessarily anything that you can bank on.
Okay. So who should we go to first? We have Carol Case and Gail Kennedy. What do you think?
Either one you'd like. If you'd like, we've talked about costumes. Let's go to Carol, and then you can dive into what they have to say about the costumes of Fargo.
The U.S. Border Patrol has exciting and rewarding career opportunities with the nation's largest law enforcement organization. Earn great pay with outstanding federal benefits and up to $20,000 in recruitment incentives. Learn more online at cbp.gov/career/USBP.
I was just fascinated with the clothes in this because it's just, it's remarkable.
Trying to get up
there. Yeah, you get the characters' personalities coming through immediately with the clothes. I think it just resonates. But how do you do 2019?
How do you do 2019?
I mean, that's 2019. It's so close to you just cheated and use things that I can find it in the store. Or did you say, I've got to go find vintage that matches 2019? Are there differences? Are there anything like that?
Well, there are differences for sure. I mean, fashion moves super fast these days, right? So there's things that definitely aren't 2019. So we steered away from those. For the people, a lot of the leads, we ended up having to build a lot of stuff, or we would buy something modern and then adjust it for our needs because the characters are so specific on that show that we have to kind of make it super clear who's who right from the beginning.
Well, talk about Juno's look. she has a look that is shifting. But how do you devise that in the beginning? And then what do you do you work with her on this in terms of saying, now, what do we want to have next? Or how does that go?
There was a lot of interaction with Juno because she's very hands-on. She likes to be involved in all of it. And I think, too, for most actors, it's part of their character, right? Like getting into the character, figuring out what that person might wear. So we started, Noah and I had a lot of conversations originally. And that's how we ended up on the yellow sweater, which, as I don't know how much of the show you've seen.
6 episodes. I've seen 6 episodes. Yes.
So you've seen a lot of yellow sweater. So we started there because Noah was quite convinced that we should go with yellow. So we started there, and then we worked on some outfits. I went to see Juno. She came here, and then we got the first couple of outfits to go. And then, of course, as Fargo is, it just goes on, right? And suddenly you're trying to find Halloween costumes that make sense. And then people are outside, and where did these clothes come from? And so much of Fargo is action related that we're pulling it all back so far, right? So 3 days ago, she got kidnapped, and now she's running through the woods in that outfit. So just trying to figure all that out. So, but it was good. It was a fun project because Juno is great to work with. She's, willing to try just about anything.
How do you handle it though when the weather's cold? Are you like insulating clothes so that people can really actually do these things outside?
Yes, we are. We were joking in the costume shop yesterday that we've become the experts on keeping people warm in inappropriate clothing. But yes, after several seasons of Fargo, it's all about the coat. And Noah and I have a long-standing joke. It's all about the coat on Fargo, because
if they have a good coat, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we try to be smart about footwear and stuff. It has to be built into the costume, though. We do layer everybody up underneath, but at some point, these are real people from Fargo, so they need to look like they're actually outside in the winter, and that they are prepared for winter. They know what winter is.
Having done
new to them.
Do you research that area and look at what people are wearing, or is it just, well, we're kind of in the Midwest anyway, so anything goes?
No, quite a lot of research went into it originally. What do people, and because it's a small town or a small city, let's say, sure. And we tried to make differentials between what happened in the city and what happened out in the country, because yourself, there's a big difference between, yes. And the practicalities involved in all that.
Okay, Jon Hamm's coat. Jon Hamm's coat is like iconic in this show. When you see him, he is, I said this before, he's like the Marlboro Man, where he's sitting on a horse. He's got that gorgeous coat.
Yay, that's what we were trying for. So good. I'm glad you said that.
Was that something that you said, now we've got to do something he has to be the coat man. We've got to really do this with Jon.
Yeah. Well, we had to make it perfect, so clear who he was. And I think that the sheepskin concept, we looked at a lot of pictures and, that traditional cowboy look, and just ended up with, this is the perfect look. And Jon just walks into it, right? I mean, he is the Marlboro Man. So that's great.
You can pull it off. Well,
yeah, I know.
Also have a blanket that he uses at some point. Am I being as cryptic as I can?
The towel.
Yes.
The towel. Yes.
Now, where did that concept come from? Did you say, oh, let's do this. This is so goofy. Let's do it.
No, I think originally it was written right into the script. It was all Noah. The whole concept. It was a bit of a drama to get there, but I think it's turned out okay.
Can you find places that will make towels like that?
Yeah, you can get them printed.
I think we all
if you have enough time and you need, yeah, I know. Perhaps FX will be selling them next year.
it's a Christmas thing, right? We need to have it.
Yeah.
How does each Fargo differ for you?
I think really the characters are so different in every one. I mean, yes, there's a certain things are going to happen, and a certain amount of gore is going to happen. A certain amount of, not everybody's going to end up at the end of the show alive. But I think each show, I think individually we take the characters and just look at each character, because so many, I didn't do season 4, but the other 4 seasons that I have done, the characters are all coming from different walks of life, different looks at this whole Midwest kind of culture, I think is probably what best word.
To me, they almost seem like Warner Brother cartoon characters. Am I making sense?
That's interesting.
Because
I think they're
immediately identifiable.
They're definitely, yes, and that's I think in that sequence. I mean, that's what we're looking to do, right? Is to make those characters immediately recognizable. We don't want to be unclear as to is Dot just going to become a suburban housewife. You need to know right from the beginning, there's something else there, and it all goes deeper.
And the gentleman who plays her husband, ideal, that is perfect. And how he dresses is exactly, I mean, the character before he even opens his mouth. And
yes,
to me, it is a real skill that the costume is so perfect for the character.
Well, thank you. It's nice to hear, David. But again, it's the collaborating with the actors on this show is really important.
Do they ever say, "No, I don't want to wear that," or "That's not right for the character as I see it"? No.
Not. I mean, sometimes there'll be some edging one way or the other, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Before I ever see the actors, I have a lot of conversation with Noah. He's a genius, let's face it, but he has the show running in his head already. So you're just trying to pick out those little things and see where you can go from there. There's usually a fair bit of creative freedom for me as far as what I want to bring to the table, which is nice. And then as long as we are telling the story, that's the big thing.
It must be great, though, working with people who have been on these over the course of time, where it isn't like we're creating everything from scratch. We know the working relationship with everyone. I'm sure that's for you.
Yes, I think, and you know what to expect. You know it's going to be cold. That these people are going to be able to deal with it, and these people aren't going to be able to deal with it. So how do you approach those things?
Talk about Jennifer Jason Leigh. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. What about Jennifer?
Jennifer's outfits, because she's of a different ilk than most of the people in this world.
Yes,
if you will.
Yes.
And so, what are you going for with her? Are you trying to make her as metropolitan as you can, or?
Well, I think that the little blurb about her says the richest woman in Minnesota. So, and she became the richest woman in Minnesota over owning a debt company, right? So there's a certain kind of ruthless businesswoman about her, and so we just tried to stay to that sort of conservative, maybe a little bit Republican feel to her look, and keep it fairly.
Does she favor designers? Are there certain designers that you would say, "Oh, yeah, that's her kind of look," or not?
We use a lot of different ones. The one that comes to mind first is St. John, which is a ladies' knitwear designer, and the Barbara Bushes of the world. There's been myriad of vice president or president's wives that have favored that particular brand, and it's a flattering look on everyone, which is nice, and it's got that sort of Chanel kind of conservatism to it.
So when you're done with the season, do you save the costumes somewhere and then you say, well, now next year we're going to do this and we just pull these out and we've got them? Or is it a rebuild every time you're doing it because the time changes?
It's pretty much a rebuild every time. Even the uniforms, like you'd think we could keep the police all the time, but the police from, CD season 2, which was in the 70s, and 2019 is totally different. And because we're moving around in the states, in North Dakota and Minnesota a bit, some of the jurisdictions had different uniforms. So we try to keep the uniforms as close as we can to what they would have been at that time.
Sure.
The big thing is there's so many different layers of security that there are times when we actually have to take a little bit of artistic license on that.
Have you been to Fargo or the area around Fargo?
I haven't been to Fargo itself, but I have been to the area. I'm Canadian, and I live in southern Alberta, so it's not that far.
They're so similar, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Just look out the door, somebody, but we'll see what happens. Well, this is so great. Thank you so much, and congratulations. I was just awestruck by the looks and the Halloween costumes. I was talking to Gail earlier about the Halloween makeup. Those Halloween costumes should be made for sale for kids because they were so good.
Oh, well, thank you. That's great. Yeah, we had a fun time doing that. Gail and I had endless emails back and forth. Okay, I'm going to do this and this and this. Can you fix, can you do the head, or this doesn't need a head? Can you do this? And yeah, we had fun. It's fun. Always fun to do Halloween.
Next year, the Fargo line of Halloween costumes, I'm predicting it, so get ready.
Okay. All right. That's great.
Thank you so much, Carol, and congratulations. It really is a special project.
Thank you.
All right, Bruce, thanks for that interview. And now we have Gail Kennedy. And what again was her role on the show?
She does the makeup effects. And if you'll notice, she talks about two major ones. I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but there is an incident, and then it causes the facial makeup to be much different for some of the characters. Was that as good as I could do?
That's probably it. I haven't seen it either, so don't spoil it. We don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it, but don't spoil it for me either.
She had some major league thing that she had to be able to come up with, and she talks about while they're in the chair and what goes on, because it's a long, arduous process for them to go through all of this.
I must tell you, this looks like the most difficult makeup I have seen ever, because there are all those head wounds and burn things. And was it difficult, or how do you do all that?
Well, I have been doing this for a long time. I have a great team, and and every Fargo I've done, this was my fourth one, and every Fargo I've done almost prepares me to do the next one. They've all had amazing special effects in them, and this year I kind of challenged Noah to write me some challenges, and he did.
Do you say, I'd like to try these kind of techniques? I don't want to be a spoiler person, so I don't want to mention certain things, but you know what I mean. The big accident that happens, and then you see the result of this accident.
Well, we've done similar things before, but that was fun because it was done in two stages. So you see the initial you see the initial thing, and then you see it escalated as it gets worse. But no, I really appreciate what Noah writes, and I like to research. So I like to find out what's behind everything. And certainly all of the makeup effects we did this season were challenging and exciting to do. And I had 3 makeup effects artists building for me. And then me and my team applied everything.
How long did it take to actually put all of the things on an actor?
Well, it sort of depends. I hesitate to be talking about some of this because I know you can mention it, but you know, a full face prosthetic, and we had 2 of them, 2 major ones in this season. They take about 3.5 hours to apply. I like to keep actors out of the chair, get them out of the chair as quickly as possible. So my partner and I work together, and she does the right side, I do the left side, and then we switch. And we keep switching, and it just really works out well, and we can get these gags applied very quickly.
How do you keep the actor engaged? Are you talking to them the whole time, or do you say, put on some music and just listen to that, and then we'll do our thing? Or how do you work it?
It depends on the actor. You know, with Sam, we would just tell stories and chat a lot. And I'm a singer, so we would sing songs. My partner and I, you know, we'll sing some little ditty together and make them laugh. And so we try to keep it very light. That was certainly the case, you know, in season 3 with Ewan, because he's also a singer. So we would engage him in a little song and dance routine sometimes. But it's important to kind of judge what the actor needs at the time. Do they need quiet? Sometimes I'll just say, hey, lay back and go to sleep.
Do they ever feel too claustrophobic because of all these things on them, or not?
No, I make sure that any makeup effects that we apply to a performer are as lightweight as possible. And I mean, they're made out of silicone. Silicone can be a heavy substance, but we make sure that they're as thin as possible so that the effect might look bigger, but actually the pieces are very thin. And that's the key, is not to make anything too big or too heavy. And we keep it comfortable.
One of the fascinating aspects of Fargo, the series, is how it teeters on the edge of like, oh my God, gruesome, and yet funny. And I'm assuming that is also put on your plate. Okay, we can't make this look too vile. It has to be something that you can, almost like Home Alone, where, you know, something happens to somebody and you go, well, yeah, that's bad, but I'm going to laugh. Do you get that kind of direction? Do you say we can't be too overtly graphic?
Oh, absolutely. I always do things with a good dose of humor in it. I make sure that it has some realism, but it's pushed. The realism is pushed enough so that it's a bit comical, but not comical enough to take you out of the story. There is that fine line. You want the story to be there, but the characters are doing that as well with their story and their acting, and they're playing it straight for comedy. Right.
Sure. And then you also have Halloween makeup because of Halloween in this. And I noticed a lot of kids. Did you deal with all those kids then to get them made up so that or how does that work?
You know what, Bruce? I designed every child's makeup that was on screen.
Oh, wow.
I drew it out in conjunction with the way that costume designer Carol Case had dressed them. She sent me photos of the children in their costumes, and I designed their little faces to reflect the way maybe mom would have done their makeup. And I made sure to tell my very professional makeup artist, keep it mom-like.
Don't make it too good, right?
Right. Make it fun. But I had a team of 6 artists on those big scenes with all the kids. And yes, every single child that was in makeup was done by our team.
Wow. Well, and I wondered, 2019, does that factor in at all with what you dare? I'm sure you can't do characters that were big because you'd have to get clearances for them. So you couldn't do like a Spider-Man or something like that. But there were ones that looked like older horror characters and skeletons and things like that. And I just wondered, is there a limit where you can go with that, or?
Well, we made sure that everything we did was original art. It came out of my brain. So it wasn't copied from any particular photo or idea. It was I just sat there and drew pictures.
You're thinking of a whole Halloween line out of this.
I should have that. I should have the Fargo Halloween palette.
Right. It's there.
Don't you think? I know.
I wanted to see them up closer. I actually stopped the thing just so I could look at the kids because I thought the kids were so cool. And does that bother you ever, where some of the things that you do really are just kind of in passing?
No, because a lot of what I do is for the performers. So I wanted to inspire the kids to pretend that it was Halloween. And I wanted them to be excited about, we're playing Halloween. So part of it was for them. If they were never on camera, whatever. They had fun being in the makeup. They interacted with each other as though it were Halloween. And that helped everybody. That helped the adults. And I think it's just a lot of fun. And honestly, Bruce, I can tell you throughout my career, many of my things have not been on camera.
Well, but hey, they're great. They're great. Let me ask you about Jon Hamm, because it's a different Jon Hamm than we're used to. Was any of that brought about through makeup? Could you do something with him? There's one part, but I bet that's costuming, where you get this kind of surprise about him. Am I making myself clear without?
You are making yourself clear, Bruce, and I absolutely did those.
Did you really?
Yep. It's prosthetic.
Right.
Right. But yeah. But
is that your idea?
No, that's a Noah. Yeah, it's that, and that's what's so much fun about Noah, is he brings these quirky little things into characters, and it's so much fun. And with Jon, we made sure that he looked like a nice conservative,
like the Marlboro Man.
Oh, absolutely. Right? And he's a rancher, and this was filmed in Calgary, Alberta, so all I had to do was look around at our Wranglers and know that they're all ranchers. Right. So I know what they look like, and it was very easy, to give him a nice tan, a little sun on his cheeks and nose and on the sides of his neck here, and to make sure that he was always, as is the case with a typical rancher, they tend to be always very groomed and clean shaven.
So Reagan-esque. I could see Ronald Reagan coming through out of him, right?
Absolutely.
Was he fun to work with? Was he really game to do anything?
Absolutely. Jon is delightful, and he's fun, and he's just easy. There wasn't any issues at all. He was easy with everything that we needed to do with him, and he's not one to fuss. And we were I just enjoyed him immensely.
When you get a Fargo assignment, then, are you just as excited as we are to see what in the world is this going to be? And are you like just flipping through as quickly as you can to see what are we going to be doing with this?
Oh man, Bruce, I tell you, I can hardly wait to get the next script. It's like, we don't get them. We don't get the whole
Once. You don't get them all at once.
Mhm. We get them parceled out to us. And so we don't know what's going to happen. Just like the actors don't know either. And so, we kind of learn as we go along. We may get 3 at a time to begin with, so we know what the flow of the show is. We have tone meetings. We know what tone they want the show to have. So we understand the direction that Noah and the producers wish to go with things. And, there's also input from the actors. Sometimes the actors, like Lamorne Morris, he said, he would send me photos and he said, I want this big old mustache. And I said, well, Lamorne, let me see. Okay, I got to tell you that a big old mustache probably wouldn't be allowed for a police officer because it's easy to grab.
Right.
Right. And so I said, but let's give you an iconic mustache that is about your character. So we'll make it as interesting as possible and as part of the character. So we did. We created a thinner, bigger mustache,
Sure.
but it worked with his character. It just gave him a look. It gave him a good Fargo look. And that was us, not him. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
well, thank you very much for talking with me, Bruce. I really appreciate it.
All right, Bruce, thanks for those 2 interviews. Now, the other component of this, of course, was you sent me an email last night saying, can we move up the recording of this? Because I have Jon Hamm, Juno Temple, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and I'm looking at that email and thinking, those names, they're not second unit directors or makeup artists. Those are real actors. We're back. We're
getting those actors back. I love that because then it means that we can ask the horse what they really meant.
Wow. Yeah. So that's exciting because I mean, nothing against like hearing from Carol Case or Gail Kennedy. They are integral pieces of making, film, TV show, whatever, and the insight that they can provide is very unique. But we want to hear from the actors too.
We want to know what they're all about too.
Exactly.
And I did ask them about the accent, and so maybe here's a chance for you to find out about how difficult is it doing that Fargo accent.
All right, so let's hear first from. Should we go to Juno Temple or?
Yeah, Juno and Jennifer are together. Okay. And I'm sure you'll be able to pick out who's Juno and who's Jennifer. I'm Bruce Miller from the Sioux City Journal. How are you two?
Hi.
Great.
Yeah, doing good. Happy to be seeing each other. It's been a minute, so that's nice.
It's been a while, right? The question though, why doesn't Lorraine have the Fargo accent, but Dot does?
I think Lorraine's worked very, very hard to change her accent from growing up where she grew up.
And Dot, how difficult was that to do that accent? Was it difficult?
Yes, it took a minute. Definitely. It was something that I had a lot of help with our incredible dialect coach, who also actually worked on the original movie of Fargo and all the previous installments of Fargo, so has a better understanding of the Minnesota accent than most people, and also of guiding people into doing a Minnesota accent. But it took a while until suddenly it clicks, and then you start having fun with it, and I would find myself kind of trying it out at the airport and testing it out in real places to see if people were like, what is going on? Or if they just kind of let it slide. But I also stayed in the accent in between setups, and just anytime I was at work, even if I wasn't on camera, I tried to stay in the accent to really kind of instill it in me and mean that, like, if I made any kind of mistakes, I didn't screw up a take.
Well, how difficult was this physically for you? Because it looks like she does a lot of.
She's in motion.
Yeah.
A lot. It was that was new for me. I haven't done a lot of kind of action-y type things, but also that was the joy of it. It's action stuff, but it's also not like an action movie. So I didn't have to be sleek at it. I didn't have to, it's about a survival kind of version of action, right? And makeshift survival version of being feral with it, I guess. But also Dot isn't an athlete. She isn't a professional kind of trained army person or any of those kind of things. So if I was sore, so could Dot be. And I did find out though that when I had to do the running at the gas station, our camera operator, Mitch, he told me I ran so fast that I ran faster than Tom Cruise, he thought.
All right. I like that. But you
so
know,
I can run.
Jennifer, you never get outside, or at least it doesn't seem like you're outside.
So good, right? Lucky me. I was so happy every time I would read the next episode, and I wasn't outside. That was a really happy movie.
It was freezing.
It was so cold.
Well,
like,
but
we
no,
literally got emails about how to walk outside because of how slippery the ice was and how cold it was.
I talked to the costume designer, and she said that she made sure that everything was insulated, even those little thin costumes that don't look like you're, so you're warm. Come on.
And they also figured out ways to add, like, it almost looked like ammunition straps where they would strap in heat packs, which was pretty major too.
Did either of you get to see the whole thing, or did you only get to see the episodes as they came to you?
As they came to us, but I think
I've only seen one episode.
But you got to see the script.
Reading wise, yes, we read like 4 or 5 before we started shooting.
Yes,
and then
the first 3 initially, right? And then we got 4 and 5, and then
we had to wait till we were actually shooting.
And then, but we kind of got them in pairs, so we would get like 7 and 8, and then we were waiting for 9 and 10. Patiently, but not so patiently.
It was so much fun to read them, though, every time.
Did you guess how they'd end?
You can't.
You can't?
No.
Okay. And Jennifer, you've worked with a lot of really great directors. And I would assume that this actually fills in with that list of all those great directors. I would think that the experience was such that it was just like, oh my God, this is one of the top 10 directing.
It was great. It really, yes. I was so excited to be a part of this. I love Noah Hawley's vision, and it was incredible. It was just an incredible experience. The cast, like the way he writes, the way he visualizes it. It was really, yeah. It was a great thing to be a part of.
And Juno, talk about Halloween, because that Halloween thing seemed like, oh my God.
We had a Halloween for a long time, which I was thrilled with. I love Halloween. The Halloween stuff was an exciting sequence for me. I don't want to ruin anything, but because of also another film it references, that's one of my favorite films also. So that was very, very cool.
But you had all those kids out there too. And
yeah, I know, with some of the most amazing costumes. They were so sweet.
So it was good. It was a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, Halloween forever. It's amazing.
Okay, so then the two of you, what did you think of Jon Hamm in this? Because to me, it seemed like a totally different Jon Hamm than I know.
Oh, he's such an amazing actor. But I actually didn't get to work with him very much in person. His character, for my character, is this kind of looming, fearful kind of thing to get away from. So but I know that you guys work together more.
It was so much fun. He's so good. He's just so good, and he makes it all just seem so effortless.
It looks like just the most fun anybody could have. That's my view of
good. It was. It really was. He's just incredible as Roy. I mean,
I can't wait to see the scenes with you guys together. That's the other thing too, joining something like this. There's so many pieces that you're also not actually a part of physically filming. So when it's starting to air, you get excited to watch it as an audience member as well as being a part of it.
Compare it to Ted Lasso. How do the two experiences compare or differ?
Ooh. I mean, that's quite a hard question because they are very different, but at the same time bring a lot of joy and a lot of, learning and friendships and camaraderie and challenges and trusting in the people that you're working with, because, I don't ever pretend to know everything about anything. So it's about kind of really, really communicating with I guess the team element of the jobs are completely the same, but I find, you know, teamwork is really a huge part from every single department of how you make something work, and hopefully how you make something brilliant, you know, because you just want to make each other proud, and you want to keep being the, you know, a kind of champion of the person next to you and the person next to you and the person next to you, because it takes an army, doesn't it, to make something at all. And I think that another thing is I was sad when both of them finished.
Well, you can be very proud of this, because I think it's a really cool project, and you're both really lots of fun. So enjoy all the fun of it. It's so cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Us too. Enjoy your day.
All right. It was good to hear from Juno Temple and Jennifer Jason Leigh, and a good conversation there. And now, of course, we have one more, and this would be Jon Hamm.
The man with a double header. Yeah. And it's a much different role for him. I do think that he sees himself in a different way. And this is probably the oldest role he's played, as the father of a 30 something son. It's interesting, but you see a different Jon Hamm. Let's see if he thinks that there's a different Jon Hamm.
Hello, Bruce. How are you?
I am great. How are you? You know, this has been a big year for you. You have such variety in the roles that you got. Was that planned, or was it just a great accident?
A little bit of both, I think. You know, it's nice to be working. I certainly have had my share of my career where the opposite has been true, and I've been staring at the phone waiting for it to ring. So it's nice to actually have, especially given the landscape of the last few years with the pandemic and how that's affected every aspect of our lives. It's been nice to have a pretty good run here, to get to do some very challenging things that are all over the spectrum of what we get to do. So I'm pleased that they're all starting to come out and people are getting a chance to see them.
But Roy has to be really something special, I would think. And who did you base him on? Is there somebody that you thought of when you were pulling this together?
Well, Noah told me, you know, he sort of like, he had the image in mind of the Marlboro Man. And I think we all know what that kind of represents, and I think there are some not so subtle comparisons in the shooting of the show where we see Roy in kind of those classic poses. So that was kind of from a visual standpoint what we were thinking of, but then of course he has a life, and the more we find out about that life, the more deeper we're pulled into this dark web of intrigue. And that's where we start to get into the story of the season, and that became a lot more challenging and fun to get into and to play.
Did you ever say, no, I'm not doing that?
No, I'm more of a yes and person when it comes to talking and doing things and portraying something. When I sign on to something, and especially when it's someone as tremendously talented and creative as Noah, working with folks, when I was teaching acting, I would tell my kids the same thing. It's more fun to say, let's find it together, and yes, and then start putting up barriers and saying, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to do this. I mean, obviously there's, you protect yourself and your safety and your mental health and all that stuff, of course. But from a creative standpoint, it's more fun when you just lead with yes, and let's see where the story takes us.
The other thing I noticed about your performance is that you didn't do the Fargo accent entirely. You had a little glimpses of it, but you didn't like lean into it like others have. Was there a reason for that?
Well, Roy's not from Minnesota. He's from kind of the western part of North Dakota, which we discussed, and I had many meetings with dialect coaches and people. He's got more of a kind of a cowboy aspect to his speech patterns, and less of the city Minnesota kind of sensibility. So that was, that was a choice, and that was I think helpful. I think we see a lot of the folks in this season have that kind of traditional upper Midwest Minnesota accent that we know and love. but Roy is cut from a different cloth.
He's from the western part of the state.
Western part of North Dakota, so even one state
the Badlands.
west.
So there you go.
Badlands, very much the Badlands.
Were you familiar with North Dakota and Minnesota then when you were growing up, or not?
Well, I knew where they were. I certainly knew where they were. I've been to Minnesota on multiple occasions. I used to go up there and work with former Senator Franken up there. I love that part of the country. It's beautiful. I've not been to the Dakotas, but I've been to almost everywhere else around there, including where we shot this, which was in
Calgary,
southern Alberta. Yeah, so it's a beautiful part of the world. It's very resonant. It looks very much like the prairie, what it is, and it's cold and it's sometimes inhospitable, and it has its own rules, and we very much exploit that in the telling of this story.
And you get the coat. That coat is iconic.
Yeah, I wish I got to keep that, but the costume department, no, they built that for me, but they got to keep that just in case we ever need to go reshoot something, I think.
The other thing I would ask for is a certain towel. I said that's going to be that's a collectible.
That one might be merch on the website. Maybe
right.
they might sell that one.
Yeah. How much did you know where this was going? Did you know before you started how it would end? Or were you like the others who kept saying that we only got a script at a time and we didn't know what the thing was going to be?
Very much that. The story was revealed to us in dribs and drabs, and we weren't necessarily, I didn't really want to know where it was going. Obviously, I knew that given my character's choices over the course of the show, it probably wasn't going to end with a parade in his honor, but there's a lot of colors when you start painting this kind of a painting, and so I was pleased to see how it transpired and how it ended, and I think it will be tremendously satisfying for those who watch.
Did you guess it?
I don't think I guessed it. I think it's impossible to guess. I think especially given the way the last few episodes unfold, there's so much that kind of folds in on itself that it's again, it's a hallmark of Noah's insanely creative mind that this is how it all unfolded.
You are so good at this kind of comedy drama, if you will. How come you haven't done a Coen Brothers thing before now?
Well, maybe that sounds like a question for the Coen brothers more than me.
Should I put it out there?
Yes, please. Let's put it out in the world to manifest. No, I've been a fan of their work since I started paying attention to their work, which for me was Blood Simple and Raising Arizona.
Arizona.
They're so amazing at finding a specific tone that is almost indescribable. But their creativity is without equal. But I think Noah's is right up there. So I've been pleased to be invited into the Fargo universe and happy to do my part.
Noah is another brother, and you could be too. You never know.
Here's from your lips to God's ears, as they say.
Hey, Jon, thank you so much. And this is so much fun. People are going to just love it.
Well, thank you. Thanks. Nice talking with you.
Thanks again for those interviews, Bruce. It's just exciting now to have like everybody back together. TV shows are slowly coming back. The actors are going to be getting back, into performing soon. The writers presumably have been working diligently to kind of get ahead of the game, so that way now that the actors will be getting back to work. What are you, just as somebody that's been covering entertainment and the business for so long and have worked through strikes in the past, what do you think we can look for next?
What'll happen is we are going to have shorter seasons for the end of this year. You're going to see like a 10 episode maybe or less of the shows that you've been looking forward to seeing. I do think that they are going to try and recession proof themselves or figure out how to deal with these kinds of problems, because there are other ones who can strike. We're not done with all the strikes that there would be, but I do think that they will look at shorter runs for series. I think that they will try to get things done quickly, and I don't think that they're going to rely on so much drama. I really do think that that's that isn't repeatable as well as game shows, comedies, any of those kinds of things. So I think we're going to look at that. But I think people will be so happy to be back that we're going to see a lot of content after the first of the year.
You know, it was funny. I was watching, I think I was just watching a football game the other day, and a commercial came on for a series that was coming out, and it was NCIS Sydney, I think, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, was this one of those shows that maybe they were thinking about, but because it's presumably it's being filmed in Australia, so you're following Australian rules, not Hollywood rules. So was that one of those that they were like, you know, let's greenlight this one because we think we might have a work stoppage and we can go down under and do it?
International creators are getting a bigger shot because they don't adhere to all the rules that U.S. Producers have to adhere to. So I do think that networks are going to be looking for more content from other places. Korea is a big hotspot for things. Of course, Australia, New Zealand, they are rolling with things. And then Great Britain, they do 6-episode series and call it good.
Right.
And, you know, that's something that's kind of new to us. We don't think in that terms. We think of 20-some-ish episodes. So I think we're learning something from this. But, is it good for the actors? That's a question we'd probably have to ask them.
I will say the one thing between the strike and networks and streaming services bringing in some programming from overseas, but even before that, I've noticed more programming from overseas, whether it was a show like Lilyhammer from Netflix. There was one, I think it was on HBO, which was based on a true crime. If you remember, there was that guy that built a submarine and invited the journalist on board, and then she was murdered.
Right.
And it was a true crime series, which I think was subtitled. But that was one where my wife and I, we went into it a little bit skeptical, not knowing, would we be able to kind of, like watching a subtitled show or movie can be difficult at times depending on your state of mind. If you're tired and your eyes are getting drowsy,
I don't want to read.
Right. You don't want to read. And it was one where we put it on and we couldn't stop watching it. It was really good. So I think one thing that I have learned through these strikes, through streaming, just kind of introducing us to different types of programming, there's a lot of really good programming out there from all over the world. It doesn't have to originate just from Hollywood.
I talked to the people behind a big new Korean film that's being nominated for, it's their entry into the Academy Awards. And I asked them about Parasite. And I said, was this a game changer? And they said, absolutely. When Parasite broke through, it told the rest of us there's an opportunity. And so I think that's what you're going to see is more content from other countries that will maybe reduce the amount of content we see from the U.S. And Canada is a big provider, too. That's where they make most of these. Fargo was shot in Calgary. It was cheaper to produce there. Yep. And, maybe there aren't as many rules that they have to deal with as the Hollywood producers have to.
Absolutely. All right. Well, on that note, I guess we will wrap up and be back again next week. Oh, yeah.
Now we got some work to do. We can't be sitting here all day watching the TV and watching all those movies. You people just better sit still for a while and do some homework.
Oh, you betcha. We're Midwest nice, Bruce, on this show.
There we are. Not me. I can be mean and I can cut you.
All right. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of Streamed and Screened.
Whether a date night or family holiday outing, Meadowlark's Winter Walk of Lights is the perfect way to experience the magic of the holidays. The half-mile walk through Vienna's enchanting Meadowlark Botanical Gardens features lighted nature themes and sparkling displays. Get your tickets now at winterwalkoflights.com. Extend your holiday season and beat the rush with a weeknight visit in November or early December. Plan your visit and buy tickets at winterwalkoflights.com. That's winterwalkoflights.com.